You are now joining Children of the Watch.
That's right. It's the #1 podcast in the galaxy for all things Star Wars television. I'm your host, Alex Maxwell, and joining me, as always, is
Mac Lacey. We got a cool episode today. We're going to be talking about a little bit of news, but then we're going to be getting into the known Jedi survivors in the Dark Times. Just the time of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to refer to it as the Dark Times.
The Dark Times. I mean, and that's what he calls it.
That's what
in
he calls
A New Hope.
Yeah, from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, straight from Obi-Wan. So yeah, this is going to be a really fun episode because we're going to speculate, like, could any of these Jedi survivors that we know about during the Dark Times have any impact on the show Obi-Wan? But then it also kind of leads us into our next episode's discussion, which will cover everything about the Inquisitors. Everything you need to know about the Inquisitors will be covered on the next episode. So I'm really, really pumped about that. It's gonna be a deep dive into that. And then the next episode after that, we're deep diving into everything you need to know about Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Clone Wars, before even the Phantom Menace with the book Master and Apprentice and some other things that we know about him. And then as well, his time in Rebels, stuff like that. So we've got some really cool content coming up to prepare on our journey to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And this is just the start. This is just the beginning of it. And so I'm super, super excited about it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. If this is your first time joining us or anything like that, welcome. We're Children of the Watch. Basically, when a Star Wars live-action TV show is coming out, we're breaking it down scene by scene every time an episode comes out, and then we do all kinds of cool stuff. We do voicemail episodes where we're here and talk with y'all a little bit. And you can find us on if you're listening to the podcast, we've also got YouTube. If you're on YouTube, we've also got a podcast. So
that's
whatever
right.
your preferred method is, we're available. But yeah, that's a little bit of who we are. And then in between seasons of shows and stuff, we do things like this. We try to just fill people in, help make connections, things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. And if you enjoy this episode and you want more, you can always find our Patreon, patreon.com/The Mandalorian Watch. That was our original name when we covered just The Mandalorian, but then they announced, hey, more Star Wars shows. So we changed our name for it to become a better after show for all things Star Wars television. And so if you want some more content, you can join our Patreon for $2 a month over on patreon.com/The Mandalorian Watch. It's a lot of fun over there. We just did a commentary on the Phantom Menace. We're going to do another one on Attack of the Clones and then Revenge of the Sith as well, which is that's a good way to get prepared for Obi-Wan Kenobi. But we're almost there, Mac. I mean, we are so close. We're 37 days away from the time of this recording until Obi-Wan Kenobi premieres with 2 episodes on May 27th. How does that make you feel?
Man, it's great. We're used to much longer waits between seasons of live action Star Wars television, so this is kind of fun that I feel like we're still digesting and processing the Book of Boba Fett. So the fact that we get to jump into Obi-Wan Kenobi, it feels super soon to me, honestly. Like, now that we're doing these kind of episodes is really the first time it's sunk in that, like, oh yeah, we're gonna be watching this show in just a little over a month. So
and it's gonna fly by though, because that first week you get 2 episodes, right? And then it's just 4 episodes after that, which is crazy.
And so it's only a few days between the premiere with the 2 episodes and then the 3rd episode, because that'll just be the next Wednesday, right?
Yeah, honestly, it's like we're just getting 3 episodes in 1 week.
Pretty much, which is going to be crazy.
And then you got the 3 weeks after that. So it's going to fly by quick. So enjoy this time. So part of the fun of Star Wars, in my opinion, is the build up to it.
Yeah.
It's this anticipation, it's this speculation, it's the what if this happened, what if that happened. This is part of the fun of the show, in my opinion. And so I'm really excited to begin that process, like, officially. So
for sure.
And honestly, I'm kind of expecting we should start getting like more trailer footage and stuff soon.
Soon. We'll get
Honestly,
those little
right?
TV spots where you get one or two new shots,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's so much we still don't know about this show, even though we're finally getting some more information. We've seen a trailer and everything. There's still just such big question marks. And I'm just pumped to get to start to unravel those.
Yeah. So let's jump into some news first before we start talking about known Jedi survivors during the dark times and how it could impact Obi-Wan Kenobi. There are some significant news things that have kind of happened since our last episode with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And a very interesting article came out with Rupert Friend, the guy who's playing the Grand Inquisitor.
Yep.
In Obi-Wan Kenobi. And if you're not familiar, the Grand Inquisitor is also in Star Wars Rebels, which we'll talk about a little bit in just a second.
Yeah.
But he said this. He said, if it's possibly be any more excited than folks already are, I would be. I think it's one of the most thrilling additions to the Star Wars canon. I think Ewan McGregor is doing things with that role that is a dream for fans of the original films. We can't obviously have Alec Guinness back, but I just think Ewan is absolutely born to play that part. And wonderful cameos from people I obviously can't tell you about. But Easter eggs galore. It's a thrilling ride.
Yeah.
First off,
I really like how just how much he's coming at this as an actor, right? He's talking about like performance and historic actors. He's talking about potential actors coming in and out. To me, what that says is that actor to actor, like we're gonna get a great Ewan performance as Obi-Wan. I love that he specifically says like he's gonna evoke Alec Guinness as much as possible. I can't wait to see that transformation. Like I hope throughout the course of the series we get to watch him go from Clone Wars to A New Hope, like in character,
Yeah, that would be cool. That'd be cool.
They'll have to explain some kind of aging thing, I think. Maybe
they don't.
They may not. I mean, it's not necessary for sure.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I love hearing that, and I can't wait to see what the Easter eggs and cameos and stuff that he's talking about, who they end up being.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like, okay, what does a person actually mean by that, right? For Star Wars, like hardcore Star Wars fans, Easter eggs means one thing, and then for people who might not be as well versed in it, there's nothing wrong with that. Like we kind of cater our show towards everyone. So if you don't know things, that's what we're here for. Like that's why we're breaking it down, explaining some things that maybe you don't know about. But like I'm curious to see like where's he actually coming from? Is he coming from like as a super fan of Star Wars, or like, hey, like Owen Lars is in this, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like, what does that mean? And it's really exciting either way, because that was one of the 5 things that we hope to see in Obi-Wan Kenobi is Owen Lars being really cool.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
I think
catch the last episode if you did not. You can see the 5 things we're looking forward to most in Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so cameo can also mean 2 things, right? You can have cameos of Star Wars characters. You can also have just other actors, celebrities coming in for a cameo as like maybe new characters, or there's all kinds of ways that cameos and Easter eggs can play out. So I would love to see a little bit of both. I'd love to see like random celebrities showing up for like 2 seconds to deliver one line, in the background somewhere or something like that.
What was that? What's that singer guy that was in Game of Thrones for like just a quick
Ed
scene?
Sheeran was yeah. Stuff like that. Not in the way that happened, because that was very distracting from the story, I think. But, just in little subtle ways. But like Daniel Craig being one of the stormtroopers in Force Awakens. Yeah. So I mean, stuff like that. That's always fun when it doesn't distract from the story or anything like that. Right. Sometimes that's a little bit more fun because you're not bringing the same baggage that sometimes like a character cameo can have,
I'm gonna drop a cameo that I think is gonna happen that we haven't really discussed.
Call your shot.
I think Emperor Palpatine will be in this show.
Okay, I buy that.
Yeah,
it makes sense. I could for sure see him in like a hologram or something like that. You know, they get a new scene filmed with Ian for that or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I mean, he could also just
show up.
I mean, we know Vader's in it.
Right.
We know who Vader reports to, so he could just be right there.
I mean, it's definitely possible. I think that Emperor Palpatine would be in the show because it just kind of makes sense, right? Like you've got the layers of evil, right? You got the Grand Inquisitor and his Inquisitors who answer to Vader. Vader answers to the Emperor, and the Emperor doesn't really answer to anyone but himself.
It's like a literally evil corporation. Like,
yes, literally evil Inc.
Yeah. It's the Empire's business name. You know, all the paperwork. That's what it says.
Literally evil. I love it. So yeah, I'm super excited what the Easter eggs could be, and I think this show is going to be a lot of fun to break down. Like I really truly believe that there's going to be things in this that when we rewatch it, it's like, oh, I didn't even catch that because this was happening. And I feel like this is going to be very, I don't know. It's going to be very exciting. Like part of me is like, I hope I don't overhype this, but like, I feel like it's going to meet the hype. I really truly believe like it's going to meet at least my expectations. And I think it's probably going to surpass them. I'm super excited about it.
It's got a lot going for it. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi is the show that once Star Wars announced it was even gonna dip its toes into live action television, Kenobi's the first thing the fans were crying out for, right? So I feel like this is really, The Mandalorian was kind of this, you know, pioneering show that it proved that the formula can work, you know, the model, the medium, and then it had enough staying power and was just, you know, such a hit right off the bat that like, I feel like, and you know, Book of Boba Fett, I think they maybe learned some lessons and stuff like that too, right?
Right.
So there's a lot going for it in that regard.
Premiere the first 2 episodes together.
Yeah, exactly. So I think exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess just like Deborah Chow, I'm pumped that it's a director's vision from start to finish, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's really exciting to me. Or maybe is she show running or is she actually directing every episode?
I'm pretty sure that she's directing every episode. That was the impression. My understanding.
Yeah, that was the impression I was under, but you never know.
There's different writers.
Yes.
I mean, there is like a head writer, but there's different writers. So like that's another thing that I'm really excited about too, is to, you know, like love Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, but it's really exciting to like, okay, what is someone else's perspective on Star Wars and what does that look like in a TV show?
Yeah.
You know, because we haven't really seen a non-Jon Favreau TV show yet. So this is still kind of stepping out and doing something new and fun. And I'm excited to see where it goes because like, if they take the Favreau approach, it's like, yeah, anybody could show up. Like if they're from the books, comics, all that sort of stuff. Right. And speaking of, that kind of transitions us into our next topic, which this is really cool. Like I love when stories like this come out.
Yeah. That
Hayden Christensen went back and watched all of Clone Wars, and this was actually like, and Star Wars Rebels.
Yes, which is so the 2 shows I think are very important when you're researching, you know, kind of re-researching this character, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Hayden has always had a really interesting needle to thread in that he, from Jump Street, had to play somebody we knew, but in a completely different form than the version we had seen on screen previously, right? So like that's an interesting thing to do. Now he's kind of, I think, maybe going to be doing both? Because don't you think since they've got him, he might be doing some flashback stuff?
There's been rumors that flashback stuff to the Clone Wars could potentially happen in this show. I don't know if those are true or not, but like if you've got him, why not?
Right.
That would be cool to see like a live action version of the Clone Wars for just a little bit.
Yeah. No, I'd love that. But like, I think so. Clone Wars is so important for Darth Vader as a character because it informs kind of a lot of his trauma and like the things that led to his fall, right?
Right.
And the person he used to be. I mean, Anakin has more animated screen time than live action, right? Probably.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, like, so much of the character is in the animated series. So I love that he's getting that side of it. He's doing his homework on kind of what's happened with the character since he has kind of been a hold of it. And then I'm excited that he is getting Rebels, which I think very much informs early Vader. So it's kind of filling in a gap in his knowledge, maybe, because he's never had to really, really prepare, I don't think, to play like Darth Vader proper, Well,
but then also, like, the addition of Ahsoka happened after his involvement.
Right.
And that's a huge thing to the character of Anakin Skywalker that we didn't know about when the prequels first came out, and he didn't know about either. And so, like, that changes the way you play the character.
For sure.
Like, if you had an apprentice who, in many ways, he treated like a younger sister, a younger sibling, that informs the way that you approach, if there are flashbacks of the Clone Wars, how you play that, and then also how you play Darth Vader, who is mourning the loss not only of Padme and his brother-like character Obi-Wan, right? Like, he's probably he has come to hate him. He says that at the end of Revenge of the Sith. He hates Obi-Wan. How is he feeling about Ahsoka? Because this is before that battle in Star Wars Rebels.
Right. I think she's presumed dead. From the Siege of Mandalore, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the idea.
And we'll talk about that with the known Jedi survivor stuff. But it's interesting to say the least. Obviously, he's probably getting some more information about the Inquisitors because of Clone War or because of Rebels as well. So it's just really, really cool to know that, like, hey, they're doing their research and they care about it. They're watching all of this stuff. It's not just like, yeah, I'll come do this and I don't really like care. Like, it's nice to know that they care.
Exactly. And they're treating the whole like canon idea kind of seriously, maybe again with that, because in the past they've been pretty quick to kind of retcon some things, anything to serve the film purpose, right?
Especially
like
the sequel trilogy.
And, yeah, for sure with the sequel trilogy, but like, like animation will take a backseat, novels will take a backseat,
right?
To whatever they want to do with the films. I love that with this is kind of showing that care they're taking, like you said, they care, to make sure that like they're not gonna undo, the stuff that the fans have come to love, the stories we've been hearing for years and years and years that have just played out in animation.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, their animation is gonna remain an integral part of the story. Like Clone Wars and Rebels, those stories, those characters we fell in love with and kind of grew to know and love and everything. Like, they matter to the characters that we're growing to know and love on the TV screen.
Yeah, and this is a quote from the EW article, and I love it the way he frames it. He says, this is Hayden Christensen talking. I went back and rewatched all the films. And then he says, and I also got into the animated shows, the Clone Wars and Rebels. It's like, he didn't just watch them, he got into them.
Right.
That's really cool.
That also may mean he like only watched the stuff where Anakin or Vader shows up, but that's totally fine to me.
With the Clone Wars, that's like almost everything.
Right. It's a ton of it.
Rebels, that's really just season 2.
Right.
So that's really cool. I love that. I love that they're doing that and they're taking that kind of care. Now, this just came across my phone as we were recording. And
Breaking
so
news.
I'm going to swerve just a bit. This comes from thedirect.com.
Okay.
And Jordan Mason from Twitter, who is a very reliable source, great follow. This is about the Obi-Wan Kenobi composer. So we know John Williams is doing a theme for Obi-Wan Kenobi, very similar to what he did for Solo.
Right.
But he didn't score the entire Solo soundtrack. That was John Powell. So he's doing the theme. According to rumors and reports, so I want to go ahead and say this because by the time this episode comes out, it might already have like been official.
Right.
But it looks like Natalie Holt will be serving as Obi-Wan Kenobi's composer. And if you're not familiar with her, you probably are. Actually, she did the soundtrack for Loki, and that is a fantastic soundtrack.
Nice. I have not seen the show, but I've actually heard elsewhere that the score was really good for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And then like a woman composing Star Wars music is really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened yet.
No.
So I mean, like,
not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So hopefully that pans out. Hopefully that rumor is true. If it's coming from Jordan Mason, though, I would bet that it is true.
Yeah, he's
so
pretty high accuracy rate.
Yeah. So that's really exciting. And then one last news thing before we jump into our main topic for today, and this will kind of lead us into it. But there was an article that came out last week that talked about how Obi-Wan Kenobi takes place at a dark time in the Jedi Master's journey. And this was another EW story. And this is from, I believe this is a quote from the writer. And he says, "It takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith in a time of darkness in the galaxy. The Empire is in the ascendancy, and all the horrors that came with the Empire are being made manifest throughout the galaxy. And the Jedi Order as we know them are all being but wiped out. So everything that was in the prequels has crumbled. The surviving Jedi, those that do survive, are on the run and they're in hiding. And Vader and his Inquisitors are chasing them to the end of the galaxy. Within that hopeless, fatalistic world, we find possibly the most famous of all of our surviving Jedi in hiding, struggling with that faith that defines the Jedi and wanting to hold on to it and hoping to regain that faith within that sort of hopeless world." So that kind of, I wanted to end with that news a little bit because that leads us really into our main discussion.
For sure.
I love, and the trailer really hinted at this tone too, that it's going to start off really dark.
Yeah.
But I really think the premise of this show is finding hope again.
Yeah. I think that's such a good, just important central theme to Star Wars, right? I mean, like, there's a reason I think kind of the original trilogy is structured as it is. Like Empire, the rebellion kind of loses, you know?
Yeah.
And like, so I think that feeling is has always been there. But then like, if you look at like Rogue One, I think Rogue One also really focused on that theme, and it'll be in a similar-ish time period, you know, a little later, but it's, I like that, just like, I don't know, in the real world, like there's a need to hold on to hope and to find hope, you know, where you can. And so I love that like Star Wars is taking a look at that. And I mean, it just makes sense for what's happening, you know, in the story. Like,
yeah, I love when stories kind of line up with, like, I feel like this is a thing that people are struggling with in the real world right now, of like finding hope when you feel like you've lost it. For me personally, this is just for me personally, like I find myself getting on social media less and less and less, just because it's like, it's heavy, you know, like it's heavy day after day, just seeing news story after news story of stuff. And it's just like, man, what's going on? And just that question and that struggle, it's something that Obi-Wan Kenobi probably will find himself in too, of like, what is going on? How did all this happen when everything. Think about the prequels, right? Especially the Phantom Menace, right before the Clone Wars broke out. The Jedi are at their zenith. They're at their peak. They're at their best. You see the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Everything is prim and proper, but there's this underlying darkness that's happening throughout that film that you're starting to see the edges of the Republic crumble. And then by the time we get to Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, it's all collapsing all around them. And they're doing everything they can to fight off that darkness. And now where we find Obi-Wan in this, it's just overcome everything, right? And he's literally exiled himself in the furthest place away from like Coruscant that you can get, and his Tatooine, right? And so like I just love the idea that he's going to be struggling with the darkness that's also probably like internally, right? Like of like, did I do the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Just this crushing guilt of like, all of this happened because of me.
Yeah.
Like the whole galaxy, not just the Anakin thing, but like the whole galaxy is under the thumb of the Empire because I failed. Right. That's a lot to carry.
It's heavy. Yeah.
So I'm just excited because like, I know where like because by the time we meet Obi-Wan, there's like this almost lackadaisicalness to him of like, it's going to work out. Right. It's going to work out. Like when we see him in A New Hope, he's putting his trust in Luke Skywalker of like, no, you can do this. I know you can do this. I know you can do this. And then by the time we get to that final lightsaber battle between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan in A New Hope, and he looks over at Luke and he smiles right before the lightsaber goes through him, he knows it's going to be okay.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm excited to just to take that journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The emotional arc is going to be incredible, I think.
I think that's going to be key to this show, honestly.
That's what the show is, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to have all the cool Star Wars stuff we come to expect, but like that's what we're coming for, is kind of the character aspect of it, I think.
Right. So, okay, let's talk about then the dark times mentioned in A New Hope.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would say the dark times actually started with the Clone Wars and Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I mean, like the whole Empire, like the whole reign of the Empire is dark times for sure. But like the Clone Wars were horrible for so many people, and like
not good.
The Jedi, I think, had kind of already fallen spiritually at that point because they're fighting a war. It's something they were not supposed to be doing.
Right.
So like, yeah, I would consider that the dark times as well. But
and that's interesting that you say that. Like, of course, they're not supposed to be doing that. They're supposed to be defending, right? And knowledge and defense. That's what the light side is all about, is knowledge and defense. It's interesting. I'm thinking back to a Mace Windu line, and I don't remember if this is from Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith, but he says, we're peacekeepers, not soldiers.
Right. Yeah.
But even the term peacekeepers, I think, misses the mark for a Jedi. You're not there to like maintain the peace and like just keep it.
You're supposed to be a peacemaker.
Yeah,
peacemaker. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like you're exactly right. They've already like before the war has even begun, like something's off with them.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But in these dark times, there's actually a lot of Jedi that survived.
More than
didn't know about.
We definitely thought growing up. We thought that there's the big two, and we'll start with them. But that we knew about the big two, but other than that, we thought they were an extinct species. But no, as time has gone on, we've gotten more and more stories about people who made it out of Order 66 with their life, at least for some time.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously the big two are Yoda and Obi-Wan. And like, if you had just seen the films, that's really like all that you know is like only two Jedi survived this, and that's Yoda and Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
Yoda obviously is on Dagobah.
Yep. Just kind of in exile, right? I mean, he doesn't really have a plan. Do you think Yoda knows when he leaves for exile? Do you think he knows that one day he's going to have to train Luke, or do you think he's just
I don't know.
going,
It's
know?
weird with Yoda because he didn't go like watch over Leia.
Right.
Like
Like,
Obi-Wan,
what's he doing?
right. Obi-Wan purposely went to go protect Luke, but then Leia is just kind of, I guess the thought was, if anyone's going to become a Jedi, we're going to let Luke do it and then let Leia not have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Just because I think that they were thinking Bail Organa is going to protect her, raise her as his own. That's not even an option.
Right. I guess I also kind of have always thought of Luke and Leia as almost two different approaches to the same end. Like they were almost like, cause like, I think if it's going to be like, if the day is going to be saved by the return of the Jedi and, defeating evil that way, the Jedi way, Luke is the candidate for that path.
Right.
I think there may have been somewhere along the line kind of a thought that like maybe Leia could do it politically, because like,
ooh,
I feel like her
maybe.
placement is kind of intentional there with Bail, not just because Bail's a good dude, but like
that actually makes sense though, because it's almost like she, even herself, like once she starts to get older, it's like she realizes this is my path to the light side, is like serving the Republic and
right.
making sure that gets restored, because that honestly that could have even like a bigger impact.
Right.
Like they both have different sorts of impacts on the galaxy.
And like we know now that like neither of them could have done it without the other, like,
right.
Their relationship with each other is what allowed them to do anything in the first place, like that. Them and then Han, and just like relying on friends and everything is like the true. Maybe the Star Wars were the friends we made along the way, that kind of thing.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, but I don't know. As far as like the ends, the intentions of Yoda and Obi-Wan, I don't know.
I feel like Obi-Wan's intentions are pretty clear. Maybe they're not though when the show starts. Like maybe he's just exiled himself to look over Luke because they didn't change his last name to Lars and they realized that was a huge mistake.
Like, oh, that was an oversight. Oh man.
We should have not let those papers go to like the Mos Espa.
Look, that was a crazy day. A lot was happening.
Had
some other stuff on my mind, honestly.
Yeah. So he realizes he's just got to stay there and make sure everything's okay. But like maybe the show is about him realizing, no, Luke is the next one, not me.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Maybe what is Yoda doing? Like we've always had the thought that Obi-Wan was always on Tatooine. Obviously, this show is going to show us he wasn't.
Yeah.
It does make you like start to question: was Yoda always on Dagobah?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And they had to do training with each other at some point, right? Do we know when exactly that happens?
So you're referring to the Qui-Gon?
Yes. So at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda's like, "Hey, we gotta go do some training real quick."
Yeah.
And then we never get that scene or anything like that.
No.
We could get that happening in this show.
We totally could. I mean, that could be a cameo that that we were discussing earlier. Like Yoda could also be in this show as well. I always imagine that for some reason happening through the Force, like they don't actually see each other.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, that would make sense with the nature of the training.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows?
Yeah. By the way, Liam Neeson, I think today or yesterday had said that he would not come back to Star Wars unless it was a movie.
Yeah.
Which to me screams he's going to be in this show. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're trying too hard, Liam.
It was so specific, and it was
right.
And it was like, I don't know. They were like, okay, you're not lying, maybe, because you've already you're already wrapped on Obi-Wan by the time you're saying this. Yeah. I don't know.
It was like, okay.
It seems a little sus. I
think
you're really like, probably gonna be in it.
Yeah, if you're really not gonna be in it, don't even talk about it. Like it's just like,
right? Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I Okay, so yeah, Yoda and Obi-Wan are the big two Jedi survivors. Probably the biggest, like, my question is like, do other Jedis know that they're alive out there somewhere?
That's a great question. I tend to think no. I think they were really trying to keep a low profile, and like especially after we'll talk about some things that happen, later. There's some.
Well, here's the thing though. Like, okay, so in Rebels, we see, in Revenge of the Sith, we don't actually see this scene or really what the message is, but in Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan leaves a message for any incoming Jedi to Coruscant to leave,
Yeah.
right? In Star Wars Rebels, we see that whole message from Obi-Wan in a holocron. So it makes me wonder if like Jedi survivors thought, well, Obi-Wan was around long enough to record this message. I wonder if he's still alive.
Yeah. I feel that.
So I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so some notable survivors in Star Wars canon.
Basically,
this is canon stuff.
Yeah, how we've constructed kind of the rest of this list. We got past the big two. That was a given. So basically, we're anybody who was a Jedi at the time of Order 66 or still Jedi adjacent, at least, so like there's some technicalities we're overlooking.
We're not counting
here.
Any Inquisitors right now because we'll talk about that next episode.
Yeah, they can't have become an Inquisitor. We're also like people who survived. There's people like Eth Koth and like all these kind of random Jedi who will like show up in comics and stuff like that. But like if we know the end of their story and that they're gone by the time of this show, we're also not going to talk about them.
Right.
So
it's like, who are the Jedi survivors that could potentially show up in the show if it goes that direction? Right.
That's what we're getting at here. It's all for the purpose of speculation and theorizing.
So I would say the biggest notable survivor is actually Ahsoka Tano. Obviously, we know she survives. You could almost throw her now into like big 3 instead of big 2.
Kind of. I mean, she hasn't like. Maybe it's just the length of time. It's probably just my mind. My mind hasn't adjusted to it yet. But
I would say once the Ahsoka show is all said and done and the Mandalorian story is over, I think for most people it would be like, oh yeah, Ahsoka is really, really important.
I mean, because
she is, but not everyone knows her yet.
There are more little kids wearing Ahsoka backpacks right now than like Anakin or Luke or Yoda or anything like that, Maybe Grogu's edging her out, but
right. Oh, I guess he's a notable Jedi survivor.
I guess he is. We're not going to count Grogu because honestly, maybe that might be an oversight on our part.
Grogu's the big 4 are Yoda, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka Tano, and Grogu.
Just amend that list real fast.
Because we see him in Order 66 in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. Okay, so
so Grogu is a big one.
We caught it in real time. Better late than never, right?
And he could. I mean, it's not out of the question that he could show up in Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, it's just possible.
That's definitely not out of the question. But like, I wouldn't say probable, but it's not improbable, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Ahsoka at this time, at the time of Obi-Wan Kenobi, she is working with the rebellion, I believe. We don't really have that confirmation because
timeline's fuzzy.
Rebels takes place about 5 years after this, but we know from Star Wars Rebels that Ahsoka has been working with the rebellion, the forming rebellion, for a little bit. And she's been using the codename Fulcrum, which is actually a codename that Anakin Skywalker created. And another person who uses that is Cassian Andor. So there is a connection there.
Yep.
So she is probably working with the rebellion. In terms of if she shows up in this show, I think if she does, it's more likely she's in a flashback than in the current timeline of the series.
Yeah.
But she's definitely a notable survivor along with Grogu.
Yeah, for sure.
So who's another notable survivor that we should have on our radar?
So I'd say probably, and this is not in the order that we have it on our list here, but who I think is the most interesting candidate for this is a Jedi named Quinlan Vos. So he's kind of a fan favorite, but if you don't know him, no worries. I mean, he hasn't been in anything like live action yet or anything like that. But he is a really cool Jedi who kind of specialized in like undercover work. He was almost like feral in a way. He never really spent much time at the temple. He was always out. Had kind of gone. He was kind of wild.
He struggled with the dark side a lot.
A little bit, yeah.
In canon and also like in his origins from not canon stuff.
Right.
Like it kind of mirrors each other a little bit in terms of he struggled with the dark side. He had he fell in love with Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
In Dark Disciple.
Dark Disciple is a fantastic novel if you haven't read it.
It is.
Even just for this little possibility that Quinlan Vos maybe in the show, it might be worth it. But
yeah.
I mean, he's like a tracker too. He's just a really cool character. He's got a really kind of unique force power called psychometry, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it's called? Yep. And so he can like register memories by touching an object that somebody else has touched. And
he's not the only Jedi on this list who has that force ability.
That's true. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, he's kind of my number one pick for somebody I would want to show up. As far as a character we're already familiar with, have seen, gotten stories from in some regard.
I agree, and here's why. There is a deep connection to Obi-Wan from the things that are not canon and in the canon story that we have in the Clone Wars with Quinlan Vos. There's like a frenemy thing going on with Obi-Wan that Quinlan and Obi-Wan have.
Yeah.
Like they're friends and rivals at the same time of like they kind of want to one-up each other all the time.
Well, they're kind of foils for each other.
They really are.
Because Obi-Wan is kind of the straight-laced, Boy Scout, and then Quinlan Vos is kind of the renegade type.
Yeah.
So no, that dynamic is a really cool thing, I think, potentially to see.
It'd be cool to see Quinlan. We don't really know his whereabouts at this time, right? Like
after Dark Disciple, I think it's just kind of
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? So. I mean, we know in Revenge of the Sith they mention his name. He's taking his forces from Boss Pity. That's like the last mention that we get of Quinlan Vos in the movies and stuff. So pretty interesting. Another notable survivor is Kanan Jarrus, whose real name is Caleb Doom. He is from Star Wars Rebels, also in the Bad Batch. We saw him survive Order 66 in the Bad Batch. Now, when we meet him in Star Wars Rebels, that's 5 years after Obi-Wan Kenobi in terms of when that takes place. So he's a little younger at this point. We kind of know what he's doing at this point. He's probably already with Hera, I would say, at this juncture, or maybe he's about to be with Hera.
Yeah.
He is definitely hiding out. I don't think he would be in this show.
Right.
He is undercover, and if you're going based on the book A New Dawn, he's probably drinking a lot.
Yeah.
He's not in a good place. Kanan Jarrus is not in a good place. He's a cowboy Jedi. That's the way they described him when Star Wars Rebels came out. Like he's kind of turned his back on the Order for now, but watch Star Wars Rebels and maybe he'll come back.
Yeah.
To the light side. So
you never know. You'll have to watch to find out.
But,
no, I mean he's probably in 5th place as far as like most notable characters that survived, right?
Yeah.
Not in the big 4, but
after Grogu.
5th.
Yeah. I would agree.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just really unlikely.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It'd be cool, but I don't think so. Like if Kanan Jarrus showed up in live action, I would explode and you'd have to find a new host. But it would be.
Don't explode, please.
Okay. I won't. It'd be really cool. But another notable survivor is Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order. We don't know technically if he is alive during Obi-Wan Kenobi because Jedi Fallen Order takes place 5 years before Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, there's probably going to be a Jedi Fallen Order 2. And because of that, I would say that it's unlikely that we see him.
Yeah.
Though I do expect to see him in live action at some point because the actor that they got to portray Cal for the video game is a legit actor. Like he has been in stuff. He's been in Gotham. He was the Joker in Gotham.
Yeah.
So like I expect to see him in live action one day. But if he's in this show, I doubt it just because I don't think they want to give away spoilers for the next game.
Yeah. For sure.
So
I would agree with you there.
But it's really cool game that you should play in preparation for Obi-Wan Kenobi because you get to go to the fortress that the Inquisitors inhabit, and you get to actually be in there, and we're going there in the show, and so that's really cool.
Yeah, man. So I have not been able to play Fallen Order yet. I don't have a console or anything that will play it, but hopefully one day we'll see.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's the most fun I've had playing a Star Wars game since Knights of the Old Republic.
Nice.
So
nice. So we're getting into the weeds a little bit now. I feel like those are the big names maybe.
This next one is connected to another person whom I do think is going to be big in the live action stuff. I'm just not sure how.
I agree.
So the next one is Luminara and Dooley, and she's from the movies. We see her in Attack of the Clones. She's in the Clone Wars. She's got a lot of episodes in the Clone Wars. Yep. She's dead by the time of Star Wars Rebels, which takes place 5 years after Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
But many have speculated that her Padawan, Barriss Offee, became an Inquisitor at some point.
Yeah.
That would make sense based on the last thing that we really saw with them in the Clone Wars.
Right. Barriss had pretty much framed Ahsoka for a bombing. For
a terrorist attack. Yeah.
Right. So, it led to Ahsoka's exit from the Order. It's a big deal. I believe she will for sure have a part to play in Ahsoka, having a pivotal role in that pivotal moment of her life. And it would almost make sense to kind of bring her in here because we've got the Inquisitors there. She just seems primed to be an Inquisitor for some, like even from the character design kind of like, it's all kind of just right there. But yeah, Luminara and Dooley, she may still, is Barriss's master. She may still be running around at this point. We're not sure when she's captured and executed.
I could totally see Barriss capturing Luminara and bringing her in, which would be a fantastic story in its own right.
Absolutely.
Of like that betrayal of I caught my master and I brought her in.
And that would be a great touchstone to explain Inquisitors to an audience that's unfamiliar with them. If you see a former Jedi Padawan who's now turned, using a red lightsaber, the whole nine, bringing in their master, you're like, oh, this is what this is. These people are completely
right.
They're gone. Like,
that would be interesting.
It'd be interesting. Just because she's already dead in Rebels, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, but that's the thing is like they were using Luminara's body,
her remains,
as a trap to bring other Jedi. Like Kanan, this is a slight spoilers for season 1 of Star Wars Rebels, but Kanan and Ezra think they're going to rescue Luminara from the Inquisitors. Yeah. But it's just her dead body when they get there, which is just like, that's pretty dark for a children's show.
Right, but it was able to trick them because there was like a lingering presence of hers that they were picking up with through the Force. It's wild. It's gnarly. That was a heavy thing to have in Rebels. Like,
I agree. I definitely think Barriss is going to play a part in live action somehow. Whether it's here, it remains to be seen. But I definitely think she's going to be a foil to Ahsoka
Yeah.
in probably the Ahsoka show. So I'm going to guess that she is an Inquisitor at this time. Whether we see her or not remains to be seen. And I'm talking about Barriss Offee here. But I think by the time we get to the timeline in Ahsoka, I think she has probably been a former Jedi, a former Inquisitor at this point, and then she's going to act as a foil to Ahsoka because many have speculated it's Barriss that might have got Grogu out of the temple. For Order 66. So we'll see about that. But there's some other survivors. There's quite a bit of survivors.
There's several, yeah. So basically, in the Darth Vader series by Charles Soule, this and I would recommend reading that before this. It's pivotal in understanding like the Inquisitors and a lot of Vader's early history. Like, definitely recommended reading for this. But in that comic, at one point, the Inquisitors are basically there's a list of Jedi who are still at large, like who have still hidden themselves incredibly well, and they can't find. Two of them, I'm going to go ahead and write off: Kamun Koli and then Selrak Iluos. Basically, those are just it's Charles Soule backwards, and Kamun Koli is like it's like a Tuckerization. Is that what that's called?
Yeah,
or you just spell it differently, but
right?
Like it's phonetically the same. So like I think those are just little cameo characters that they wrote in for themselves. But there are the other two characters on that list are Oppo Rancisis. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but and then Coleman Kaj, Kcaj. Both of them they were masters. They were on the Jedi High Council. So Oppo Rance.
He's the snake one, right? Like
he's like snake body, and he's got a really furry face and stuff. Yeah, for the YouTube, you've got him there. That's old Oppo.
He's got like a beard face. Literally, his entire face is like a beard.
Yeah, it's cool. He looks kind of dope. But yeah, he's supposed to be alive at this time. He was on the High Council, so I think notable at least, And then basically the exact same situation with Coleman Kaj there. He is an Ongri, who, if you have time for a really quick theoretical evolutionary tangent in the Star Wars universe, I think that maybe the Ongri are descended from the Rakata. Evolutionarily. Anybody at home, just look up the Rakata from the Infinite Empire and then Coleman Kaj or the Ongri species. But it looks like what happens after a few millennia to the Rakata.
Honestly, yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway, back to the matter at hand.
Anything, if we can ever tie it back to Knights of the Old Republic, we will try.
You best believe we will.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But anyway, two, masters on the High Council. I think they could show up. You never know. Like, I would envision
how cool
they've been caught or something.
That's what I was about to say. They're being tortured.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna see them showing up and kicking butt or anything like that. But they might be in the show as they're the first victims we see the Inquisitors capture or whatever.
And it could be a quick shot of them walking down some cells, and we see them in cells and stuff like that. That would be really, really cool.
Exactly.
And they were on the Jedi Council.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They would definitely be torturing them and keeping them alive. They wouldn't be killing them because they're going to try to get information because they know Yoda and Obi-Wan are probably still out there, right?
Yeah. I mean, they'd feel it in the Force, probably, right?
You would think
Unless Obi-Wan and
dark
Yoda are
side,
doing
yeah.
something to hide their presence in that.
And we
I
don't
don't know.
really know if the dark side, like, do people on the dark side, are they able to sense people in the Force like people on the light side do? Or
There's at least some degree, because like you see the Emperor
true.
doing it and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Vader doesn't know that Luke is his son in that way, so I don't know, maybe it's just like a different it just manifests differently for the dark side. I don't know.
Palpatine's like sense, his spidey sense is very interesting, especially like in the Clone Wars. Like anytime something is like, this might be a hindrance in my overall plan, he's going to get involved. Sometimes like he'll let something just play out just to see how it plays out, because it makes him, it entertains him. That's the thing about Palpatine, is like he actually thinks things are funny in a weird, sick way. And like, that's why he's laughing all the time.
Right.
But like when Darth Maul starts doing stuff in the Clone Wars, like
making moves. Yeah.
Palpatine's like, I need to go take care of this.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting as well. And then the last one is Nak Med, who technically left the Order before Order 66, but he came to aid other Jedi in the aftermath. And really, he's the grandfather of the main character from a Star Wars novel called Force Collector. I actually have that on the shelf right now.
It was a young adult novel that came out. Yeah, but he at this time he had already left the Order before Order 66, but like just to be able to pursue his own interests and stuff, not for any like ideological reason or anything like that. So like when stuff started happening, he started helping out and like coming to he wanted a family.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you know, that's a character I think that would be, he's been published and stuff already in canon, but that'd be cool. Seen. So that's kind of like a prime candidate, I think. Maybe even in just a little way. Maybe you just hear about him doing something to help somebody or something, you know, just a little, any little cameo could be fun.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's interesting, you know, like, so you mentioned Quinlan Vos and his ability to touch things and get like the history of it.
Yeah.
So Nak Med's grandson has that ability, but Cal Kestis also has that ability as well. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, those are just like some of the big names that we feel like if they're going to make an appearance in Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's probably going to be one of the names that we just mentioned. Or like a brand new character that we've never heard of before.
Yeah. And honestly, that's what my money would be on.
Yeah.
Would just be this random Jedi we've never heard of before who just is in danger or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Because I do think we're gonna get that. Like we've talked before about, just from the information we have now, we kind of think a large part of the plot's probably going to be around Jedi survivors and stuff like that. That's why we're talking about it on this episode. So I would venture to say that the most likely thing is that they'll just invent new characters, and that's honestly what I would prefer. You know?
Yeah, I would think so.
So
I would. Yeah, I agree. So that kind of ends our discussion then, and that leaves us open for our next episode, where we're going to deep dive into every single Inquisitor that we know of.
Yeah.
And give you kind of the rundown on them and what you should expect from the Inquisitors and
we're
stuff.
Talk
and just
all things helicopter lightsaber.
Oh gosh, I can't wait. But before we run, I do want to just talk about Star Wars Celebration panels real quick, because that does apply to us in the sense of we're Star Wars After Show, and we want to stay up to date on all the news coming out for Star Wars television. I expect that we'll get some movie news, but as a time-honored tradition at Star Wars Celebration, you'll probably get like a lot of movie news, and then they'll never make those movies.
Yes. That is what we've been doing for the past several years.
So that's really exciting. Of like, we had this idea for a movie that we'll never make. So that's really cool. But I would say the live action stuff that gets announced, it's likely to happen. So I just wanted to kind of run down real quick what that schedule will look like, because it's the same weekend that Obi-Wan Kenobi is premiering. So it's going to be a lot of information coming your way that whole weekend in terms of what's happening. So we want to make sure like you're prepared for, number one, Obi-Wan Kenobi, which that's going to be our priority.
Yeah.
In terms of getting the breakdowns and stuff out first, because that's what we're all about, like
it's coming up. It's the next thing.
It's the next thing. So we want to get the breakdowns out first. But there is going to probably be some news in terms of Star Wars live action television, because on that Thursday, May 26th, which is probably why they moved from Wednesday to Friday anyway, because they didn't want to overshadow this.
Right.
So that Thursday is a live action showcase panel. And this is what they said for it. Star Wars Celebration returns in May, launching with a must-see showcase that will kick the weekend's festivities into hyperdrive. On Thursday, May 26th, Lucasfilm's current crop of live-action filmmakers, that's not just TV though, will be joined by special guests to discuss the many Star Wars adventures coming soon, including Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, and The Mandalorian. So like we're there for that, right? We're Star Wars television. We're there for that. Friday, they really haven't announced a panel. My guess is that will be the day for Jedi Fallen Order 2, but they probably want to keep that day light for
the obvious,
Obi-Wan.
The main event.
Obi-Wan is the day that, that's premiering. By the way, we were originally planned and scheduled to go to Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
And that would have been really fun, but it got really close to my baby being born. And I just.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's actually worked out. I think it's going to be easier for us to podcast if we're here at home and not there.
I mean, podcasting will be much easier and more convenient from the comfort of our own offices. But
yeah, for sure. I feel for all the podcasters going to Star Wars Celebration, because it's like you can't really be a fan that day. You got to work.
So many people. I imagine just so many people huddled around Zoom
phones
H6
and stuff.
recorders.
Yeah. So Saturday, this is really interesting, Mac. Saturday, May 28th is the Mandalorian panel. They get their own panel.
That's a big deal.
That is a huge deal.
Because we've already said that there's Mandalorian stuff happening on Thursday.
Yeah. Okay.
So to me, that says
we got more.
Big.
Yeah, we got more to show you on Saturday, which is like, if you guys have been with us for a long time, I'm probably going to be on cloud 9 on that Saturday.
Yeah.
Here's what the announcement says. The makers of The Mandalorian are coming to Star Wars Celebration Anaheim 2022. StarWars.com is excited to announce that The Mandalorian creator Jon Favreau and executive producer Dave Filoni will make their first Star Wars Celebration appearance since the premiere of the Disney Plus series. The panel, called Mando Plus, a conversation with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, will take place May 28th and feature the duo along with special guests for a look back and a look ahead at what's to come.
All right, Mando Plus is dumb. But just the name.
It is. Okay, so what do you think that could entail? So they're looking back, obviously, at season 1 and 2, and probably even a little bit of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that implies maybe we're going to take a look at what's ahead.
Okay, so there was an article that came out where Giancarlo Esposito said that we were seeing The Mandalorian season 3 in the summer. And no
way.
Me and Mac freaked out for a little bit, because it's like, I don't know if we could do Obi-Wan and The Mandalorian back to back.
And you're having a child. I think our brains would explode.
Yeah. So that's a huge deal. What I think he meant by that, though, is we would see footage of it in the summer, and that would make sense.
Yeah, a trailer is what I took that to mean.
I think this panel will reveal Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's playing him, and we'll see images of him and footage of Grand Admiral Thrawn. That's my big, I think that's happening.
Yeah. That'll be dope. I could definitely see that happening. When I say that'll be dope, I just mean whenever that does happen, I'm imagining that moment.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. Whenever that news comes. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Big stuff. We'll keep y'all posted, I guess.
Yeah, well, and then that Sunday is the Bad Batch panel.
Yeah.
And they're going to be talking about season 2, obviously. Season 2 is supposed to be out already. My guess is that they're placing that right before the Mandalorian season 3 because it's going to lead in kind of well to that.
Maybe
because there's a lot of connections between the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian already.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, cloning and there's actually a lot of different ways.
Cloning is so hot right now.
So hot right now. And if you want a t-shirt with that on it, you can go to keepthewatch.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that does it.
Cool. Well, this has been fun. I think we covered a lot of ground, got into it. And we'll see y'all next time when we're talking Inquisitors. But until then, keep the watch.